I was doing a wedding and this like, sort of young 20-year-old came up to me and she was like, oh my God, you're so cool. And I'm like, I'm really not. And then I had a little bit of a midlife crisis at 24 and was like, do you know what? I really want to make it in the West End. I can't do that when I've got children because I can't find childcare at that short notice. But then once you get there, you're like, okay, I'm Lucy Harvey now.
Welcome to today's episode of I'm Fine But. Now I am joined by Lucy Harvey. Lucy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Lucy, please can you tell our listeners what you do, who you are and who you serve?
So I am primarily a wedding musician, but I also play for other sorts of events. I create musical magic on a day for wedding couples. So that can be anything from live music for a ceremony, drinks reception, cocktail hour, evening with a DJ. So there's all sorts of music. I sing and play saxophone primarily. And yeah, that's what I do.
What an exciting job. And what is the name of your business?
I'm Lucy Harvey, a vocalist and saxophonist.
So take me back to the beginning because you've got 2 children yourself. So take me back to your initial career. What did you do to begin with?
So I always loved performing. I've been performing from school, started learning saxophone at the age of 11, and it wasn't ever I'm going to be a wedding musician. I don't think anyone who ends up in the wedding industry necessarily plans that. But I at the age of 18 went straight to work on holiday parks. I'd always loved that. We did like Haven holidays as kids. So went and cut my teeth in the entertainment industry doing that for a few years around doing a university degree because my dad was very much, you need an education, you can't fall back on entertainment. So I did that for a few years. And then when I finished university, which I did a writing degree, so totally not music, but I was always in the music department. I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I went back to holiday parks for a little while, then spread my wings and worked abroad for a bit as lead vocalist in show teams abroad. And then when I did eventually come back to the UK, I went back to holiday parks in management for a little while and then decided that as much as I was also depping with bands at that point and doing lots in the entertainment industry, it was actually easier to manage myself. This was all before children. So then I started going out doing solo work as a musician. And then I had a little bit of a midlife crisis at 24 and was like, do you know what? I really want to make it in the West End. I'm going to go back to study musical theatre. So I went back to study musical theatre, and that weirdly led me into weddings because the musical director who worked there ran a very successful gospel choir and asked me to join that, and they did a lot of weddings. So then through that I was like, actually I could be doing this with my own music that I do, and then took steps to do that. So that's sort of how I ended up in weddings.
Yeah, and I do think when we look back at what our degrees are, so many people's degrees are nothing to do with what they actually do now, because you're at such a crossroads in your life and you're like, I'm just going to pick something that I think will benefit me, and maybe it is a little bit different now.
I would have loved to do music, but I kind of, it was stacked against me in that I wasn't allowed to do music GCSE because at my school there wasn't enough children taking it. So without music GCSE you can't do music A-level, without music A-level you can't do music at university. So I just like, well, what else do I enjoy? I really enjoy writing, so I'm going to do a writing degree. By the end of that degree I hated writing. I just 3 years of intensity, and just it was a specialist arts college, so I was in the music department, and then it sort of won out. I don't know if maybe if I'd managed to do music that way it would have been the same.
Yeah, and I do think with a lot of degrees it does zap the passion out of anything that you did love before. It changes, not for everybody, but you see things in a different light when it becomes almost a day-to-day chore.
Yeah.
So you built your business, you decided to go solo. At what point did you then have your children?
So I had my daughter in 2015, and by that point I'd been solo since the beginning of 2010, so about 5 years, but not massively in weddings at this point. I was still singing with the gospel choir, and this definitely having children was a turning point of, can I keep doing this where it's late nights, it's on the road a lot, can I keep doing this whilst I have children? And I kept at it, and then I sort of was like, I'm gonna have to do something sensible. Decided I'd get into teaching, which I still do, but I thought I was going to have to do that route. I was going to have to get a job that worked with around school times and things. So I had my daughter in 2015 and my little boy in 2018, and was sort of between the two. So still doing performing, but also trying to teach more and juggling everything at that point.
Yeah, and isn't that a crazy thing that we go through that actually I'm now having children, so I'm going to have to change effectively what you've built up,
Yeah.
who you are, to do something that's more what we see as more reasonable or more that's going to fit in better, that we have to change our identity because we're bringing this extra person in. And did you make that decision before you'd had your daughter, or did you make that after you'd had her?
So before I had her, because it's such a, you can't really plan ahead with my job. You can to a certain extent. Some things are booked far in advance, but at that time I was also doing a lot of promotional work, so, and TV extra work, and that's all really last minute. It's like, can you be here at this time tomorrow? And I was like, I can't do that when I've got children because I can't find childcare at that short notice. So I do need to do something that can be a little bit more organised. And people had spoken to me about teaching at that point, and I was like, well, I don't know if it's really for me, and I don't know, I didn't feel confident in myself to do it actually. But that was a turning point of maybe I should start concentrating on something that would fit more around family life.
Yeah. And I totally get that it is that the pressure of going, I can't just drop everything now and leave how you would do before, because now you've got another person to consider.
Yeah.
And it's a huge transition. What a huge transition, going from being able to drop everything and going to work on a on a set for the day, and then going, actually, I haven't got childcare. And do you have quite a close knit family around you that that does help with childcare?
Well, so at that point, my husband, we both worked basically in evenings because that suited us. We didn't have anyone to look after. So he changed his job and he was working now. So we're kind of ships that pass in the night. He was working more of the day shift and I was working the evening shift in a way. So it was kind of, we both had to make amendments. My mum lives about 40 minutes away, but she doesn't drive and she also still works. We're sort of limited. Okay. She can help in school holidays. And my father-in-law lives up in Yorkshire, so he's not close. He's retired though, so if he can help, he comes and stays with us for a couple of weeks in the summer. So it's really tricky, and I think the hardest part was when the children were small, before they went to school. Nurseries do not like people who work odd shifts. You have to set them like, they're going to come at this day every week and those certain amount of hours, and childcare on a night time is nigh on impossible if we hadn't organised ourselves that I'm the one primarily working late and my husband's the one primarily working in the day. So there's definitely a gap in the market for childcare out of sociable hours, but also reliable childcare with DBS checks and, Ofsted things. Otherwise you are sort of playing it a bit fast and loose with babysitting and finding somebody who's reliable. So it is a challenge.
Yeah. I can totally imagine the panic of that, especially if you were having to head out to a gig and you're waiting on your husband and you're like, I need to leave in 20 minutes and you are late.
A lot, yeah. And sometimes it's been a case of, I'm going to go up the motorway, and the way he comes from work, he's going down the motorway. I'm like, right, I'm going to leave and I'm going to meet you at this junction with the children and we'll swap over. And I mean, luckily it doesn't happen too often, but it is stressful for both of us.
Yeah. And before I built this business up, I was predominantly working in fitness. So I was working as freelance fitness, and that is the majority of the time, evenings, after people have been to work, early mornings, weekends. And when my children were little, I actually found that easier because my husband would go to work. He was a manager at a gym as well. So he would work the sort of normal hour shifts, and then I would work the hours when they were in bed. And I actually found I didn't feel as bad about doing that because I felt like I wasn't missing out on as much because they were asleep by the time I was going out. However, I did find that once they were reaching school age, I was then out a lot of the time when they were at home, when they were getting old enough that they were up till sort of 8-9 o'clock. And I was then missing that time. I mean, I still work 2 evenings a week now and we are run ragged with clubs. But for me, that was a point of going, do I want to be out 5 nights a week and on a weekend to work, or do I want to try and work when they're at home?
Yeah, it's definitely a juggle. I think for me, because there are, especially in peak summer when it's top wedding season, I can be out 5 nights a week. But then I get that other side of the coin where November, December, January, February, March, I'm not working as much. So I'm in predominantly 5 or 6 nights a week. So it's taken a little while to kind of come to terms with that in the summer holidays, I mean, I do get to see them a lot in the day, and there's days off and things. But yeah, they have to do after school club a lot more from April to September than they will the rest of the year, and they've come to understand that as well. So being in school is definitely the biggest help, because you can get your admin done in the day, you're not having to juggle that as well at night. But with the after school club, it doesn't have to, well, with our school, we don't have to have set days. I can book it as and when we want, and that is just that's been very helpful.
Yeah. Any flexibility that you can have, exactly like you said with the nurseries when they're small, if you've got to pick set days, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you're in that thing of, I don't really want to send them because I don't really need them to go. And it'd be nice to spend some time with us, but I've paid for this time.
I know. And then it's like, I think with my little boy, when he was at nursery, I was teaching more. And there was set days, but then you're also like, okay, all of the tasks that I need to do without children around, I'm going to cram into those days. But yeah, it's definitely a big juggle.
But if someone's thinking of getting into this sort of industry, and it's a lot of evenings and weekends, not many people get married, I'm assuming, midweek.
It's getting more popular, actually. Definitely sort of Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, it leads into the weekend. Sundays when it leads into a bank holiday. Like it's changed over the last 10 years, I'd say. Like predominantly Saturdays. I know I'm going to be working a Saturday. My husband knows I'm going to be working every Saturday pretty much throughout wedding season. But yeah, the weekday weddings, often the venues are slightly cheaper and some suppliers are slightly cheaper. So people make the most of it. Can't blame them.
No, and I actually really like the fact of you saying that you could have a Wednesday on and it goes into the weekend, because then you can have like a 4-day wedding.
Yeah, this is what people do. It's like, well, if you're asking, especially with Thursday, if you're gonna have a Thursday wedding, people think, well, I'll just take Friday off work and then into the weekend. So it does appeal to people.
And how does this lifestyle impact you as a mother? How does being, for example, you just said that you're going to be working Saturdays. How does not being there on a Saturday impact you personally?
I think because I've always worked weekends, it's just the norm to me, and the kids know it's the norm. Sometimes on a Saturday I'm not leaving till sort of 5-6 o'clock in the evening. Sometimes I'm out for the entirety of the day, and that's just, they know that daddy works Monday to Friday. He's gone by the time they get up, and he's back about 4 o'clock, and mummy works wherever it fits in around that. I think the hardest part is missing out on social things, because a lot of weddings get booked up way in advance. But say it's my niece's birthday in a couple of weeks, and they're obviously having a party on a Saturday. Well, I can't go. My husband and my children will go, and you can't just cancel somebody's wedding because there's your own social event happening, unless you know way in advance and you can just block that day off so you don't take work. So I think that's the hardest part, is the kids are used to it, and they like having time at home with daddy on a Saturday, and I try and keep Sundays free so that we at least have one day together. I think that is what helps all of us, and special things like I won't work over Christmas ever. So it's having those boundaries for yourself, but knowing what you need to do for your business. I couldn't be in this business if I said I don't want to work Saturdays. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah. And you are completely right that your children get used to it. And one of the big shifts that we find when people start businesses with us is that it's almost getting the children used to that shift as well. My children have always known me to be like, okay, I'm on a meeting, I'm in the office. If you need me, just give me a knock. We're quite open and honest that we are mothers, we've got children here, we can't hide them. So, if they need to come in, they can come in. But they are used to that environment, or they're used to the fact that it gets to an evening and, I still go out and do my classes, and that's their time that dad's there. But I do think that is, for some children who are used to having both parents on an evening, it is quite a shift in their daily routine, I suppose.
Yeah, because I've never, well, other than COVID, I've never not worked evenings and weekends. So they're used to it now. Sometimes it's actually harder if I'm in for the majority of the day, because they'll ask me, like, what time are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going just after tea time. And they're like, oh, I don't want you to go. Whereas if I'm just up and out, it's easier because they're just in their routine. But yeah, it's just getting them used to it.
Yeah. And almost as well, I'm that thing of, if I have to go out later on, and I know in the summertime when I've got like evening classes or I have to be out in the afternoon, and you're outside and you've maybe got the paddling pool out, or you're all chilling, and then you're like, oh, I've got 4 hours till I need to go. Do you ever get that sinking feeling of being like, I just really would love to stay and put the barbecue on and the cracking a few beers?
I think is that headspace of knowing you have to go to work, you are clock watching. and you're not
Yeah.
like, and you're not relaxed enough, because you're like, well, we've got an hour and we can do this, but then I have to leave at this point, and then you're also checking the traffic for me because I travel quite a lot, so I'm like, actually, I'm gonna have to leave half an hour earlier because the M5's blocked up, or something like that. So, yeah, that's why I quite like keeping Sundays free, because then I have that headspace of, you can enjoy the day, you're not clocked. Yeah.
I think it's the same with teaching classes. It's almost that performance that you step into this new role. So it doesn't matter how much of a shitty day maybe I've had, maybe, some of the kids might have been playing up, or I feel like we've had a conflict, or, one of them's done something or I've done something. And then you don't necessarily feel like you want to step out into work. But when you get there, you almost put your performance head on, and you sort of, I feel like I'm like, evening, everybody. Hi, how you doing? Do you ever have that where you are going, oh God, I don't want to leave, or, I've got this, this gig to do, but then actually you get that performance head once you're there?
Oh yeah, all the time. I think that the drive is always the decompress, where you sort of switch gears and you're like, okay, so this is what. And sometimes I'll be driving, I'll be thinking about, like, what meals I need to plan for the week, or kind of doing all the house admin in my head. But then once you get there, you're like, okay, I'm Lucy Harvey now. I'm in wedding mode, and you step out, and that's when you forget all those things, because you're in performance mode. And it's nice to escape to that. I think the first gig I did back after having my daughter, I cried all day because I didn't want to leave her, which is kind of crazy. She was only 3 months old, and not having had babies, you think, yeah, that'll be plenty of time. But I cried all day. But then when I actually got out and did the gig, it was such a nice feeling of, oh, this is like the old me, working me. And that's kind of part, and music is such a huge part of my identity, that it's lovely to have those two roles, and they don't really ever merge for me at the moment. It's one or the other.
Yeah. And that's so true, because you do, especially with your first as well. And I really resonate with what you've just said. And I think I was so scared of leaving her, and I almost buried the person that I was before a little bit, because I was too scared. I was almost becoming this new person, but then I grieved the old person.
Yeah.
I was like, well, where's she gone? Where's the girl that used to dance on the bar gone? Like, where's that part of me? And you have to almost morph into this new version that can have both, and that feels powerful in both as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's so hard that nobody can really explain that change until you become a mum, because until you live it, people say, oh no, it's hard and this, that, and the other, and it's really difficult until you're in it. And I remember thinking, like, she must have been 4, 5, 6 weeks old. Well, it'll go back to normal soon. It'll go back to normal soon. Once she's sleeping through, or once we got past this stage, it'll go back to normal. And it took me probably 3 months ago. There is no going back to normal. Like, I have to actually find this new normal within this situation now, and that was a really difficult block to overcome.
Yeah. And that courage as well to go back after 3 months. Did you physically have to go back, or did you sort of make yourself?
I think I was quite naive in knowing when I would be ready, and 3 months feels like a long time before you have a baby.
Yeah.
But I booked this in, and I probably could have turned around and said I'm not ready, but I thought, you know what, if I say no, I'm just never going to do it, and I may as well just, as much as I cried all day because I was sad about leaving her, and I wasn't even gone for that long, and she was asleep for most of that, but it was just that getting back yourself back on the horse and be like, do you know what, no, I need it for me, and I love performing. And once I'd done it once, it got easier. It definitely got.
And when I started to kind of do more things, it was almost having faith that my husband was all right with them. And it was nothing of that I didn't trust him. I 100% trusted him. But you have that instinct that's so much inside you but they might not do it the same way. They might not feed the same way. What if they need burping? What if they're crying and he can't settle them, and I'm not there and they want me? And actually, they need to do that to learn how to do that. And I think I blocked that quite a lot to start with.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely nights when I'd get back from a gig and my husband would be up with her and be like, she just won't settle. And I mean, he got to the point, he wasn't going to call me about it, because there's nothing I can do, and it's just going to make me feel bad if I'm, still an hour away. But he'd just be like, I've tried everything, you just have to breastfeed her now, and it would be fine. I think the hardest points, my little boy was a worse sleeper. So sometimes I'll come back from a gig at sort of 1 o'clock in the morning, and he'd be awake, and then he wouldn't settle for hours. And then by the time I got him to sleep, maybe get 3-4 hours sleep, and then I'll be up for the day. And then you've got 2 children, toddler wasn't napping with a baby, and those were really, really hard days, like really hard days. But once I got through that, once they started sleeping, and my career trajectory started taking off with winning wedding awards and things, that really changed everything. I think it was just you are really in the trenches when they're tiny.
Yeah, and the sleep as well.
Yeah.
And even if people tell you you're going to be tired, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to be tired, you think, oh well, I used to go out. I used to get in at 4 a.m. and then I'd get up for uni at 7 a.m. and I can manage. If I can do that, I can do this. Nobody prepares you,
No.
and there is no way to prepare anybody ever for that amount of sleep deprivation and how it messes with your head.
100%. And because I was used to late night, so it wasn't like, well, I'm used to going to bed really late, but it's when it's constant. And my little girl started sleeping through when she was about a year old. So when we decided to have another, I was like, do you know what? It's just a year of like really bad sleep. But he had other ideas, so it was like more like 2.5 years of really bad sleep. And I think you've got to be, especially even now, I think you've got to just allow yourself to rest when you need to rest. If I've had a really late night and I don't get in until say 1 or 2 o'clock, and I have to get up and do the school run the next day because my husband starts work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I know I have another gig that night, if I need to go back to bed in the afternoon before I do the school pickup, then I have to go back to bed in the afternoon. And that's it definitely some sort of guilty conscience of like, oh, everyone's at work and I'm just going back to bed for a few hours. But it's allowing yourself that, I will burn out if I don't take rest in these points where I need rest.
Yeah. And as a mum, we will find anything to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
Whether that's justified or not. Like, you've worked until 1 a.m. and then you've got up and done the school run and you probably need more sleep. But in your head, it is that thing of, but everyone else is working, or I've got to put the washing on, or I could really do with sweeping the floors or getting tea ready for the kids. And again, as women and as mothers, the more I speak to more women, the more I see how selfless we are as a
Gender.
As a gender, thank you. How much we are selfless. And I'm not saying that men are not selfless, but we will always put everybody else's needs before our own. So in order to acknowledge that yes, you are working, and you are still working probably more hours, maybe if you're doing 5 p.m. until 1 a.m. than some people do in a full day shift, that you do need rest, and your body needs rest in order to function correctly for your children when you see them later on.
Yeah, and it's definitely a strange thing to try and get your mind around because of that idea of like 9 till 5 and you work that time. And quite often, I will do admin things in the day towards my business and then do the school run and do the things with the kids and then go out to work. And then you think, I've put in a right shift today, and I haven't given myself rest. So it's just sort of being kind to yourself as well, and knowing that you've got to look after your needs. The idea of putting, put your own oxygen mask on plane before you put the kids, but it's hard to justify that sometimes, I think.
Yes, and we've been talking a lot recently about like flexible working, because for our model, we do predominantly do between 9:30 and 2:30 for the classes that we're running, because that's the school time, because we want to fill that time. But then there's the amount of videos that I've taken sat in my car typing away, editing things, press releases out into the world, and I can be there doing that up until 12 a.m. And it's all the hours that you don't always facilitate as working. You are still putting that same energy through your brain.
I find that I will reply to emails and DMs and things at crazy hours. Sometimes when I get back from a gig, because especially with DMs, if I don't acknowledge it when I see it, I might forget. Inbox is a bit easier with emails because I can go through that logically. And then, you're like, oh, I haven't scheduled some social media posts this week, so I'm going to sit down and do that on an evening, even though it's technically my evening off because I'm not going out to work, and trying to balance all that. Or you get a bride message quickly, like send a text message about something, and I might be in the middle of something with the kids, but I'll just quickly reply to that. And I think those boundaries are really hard to establish. I've got a little bit better, but it's still, for me, it weighs on my mind if I've had something come through and I haven't replied, because I'm worried I'll forget about it because our minds are so busy.
Yeah, I am 100% the same as you. And to the point where last year my husband bought me a second phone, which I didn't even realize that you could get a dual SIM. I was like, that would have been so much simpler than me carrying two phones around. But so that meant that if we went out as a family or we went out for the day or it's a Sunday, I leave that other phone in the office and it's got no social media on it. It's got nothing on it. So no, but the only people that can contact me are the select 12 people in my contacts. And that's put a boundary in place because I can't physically be accessible to anybody.
It's a really
And
good idea.
it's a really hard thing to do. I had to work really hard at that to go, I'm going to put this phone in the office and I'm not even going to look at it. And then because you get that fear of forgetting to reply to somebody and then somebody thinking that you are rude or, somebody putting an inquiry in and you haven't got back to them quick enough and then you've lost that sale and it's gone to somebody else. So it's a real
really
balance.
hard. Yeah, I don't know if I could actually bring myself to do that. It would be a great idea. I think that the best thing that happened for me is we built my office in the back garden. Previously, it was in a room in the house so that we could free up the room in the house. And actually just having to cross the garden to go and, do something work-wise. Now I am much better at being like, I don't want to walk across the garden in the rain at night. I will do that tomorrow. Whereas before, when it was in the house, it was so easy to just nip in and do X, Y, Z. Whereas now I'm like, no, that this person's not going to change their mind on booking me just because I'm going to maybe wait till the next day to send a booking form instead of doing it immediately. And that's been a real game changer, I think.
Yeah. You've got to have that designated space that's away from your living and your life space. So if we've got people listening, Lucy, who are thinking, I would love to go down this route, not necessarily, it might not be within music, but in sort of entertainment or weddings or working evenings and weekends and building something for themselves, but they've got children. Is there one bit of advice that you could pass on from somebody who is doing it and you are smashing it?
It's so hard because it's the biggest issue is definitely having childcare. So is just getting that in place and then absolutely go out and do it. And I love that my kids get to see that mainly through videos. They don't really get to come to many of the gigs I do, but they see that I've got this really fun job and that I really love it and that I'm doing really well at it. And I think that's such a great influence to them. But yeah, it's just getting your ducks in a row and being organized. I mean, one great thing about the wedding industry, like I said, is people book really far ahead. So I've already got a list of dates I've given my mum over the school holidays and been like, so can you do this date, this date? And it's just organisation. But I think mums are so good at organising anyway. We have to be just to get through all the clubs, all the things that school want. So yeah, absolutely go for it and be that sort of great role model for your children.
Yeah, love the fact that our children get to see us as women just building something that we're so passionate about that can start from just an idea and then it brings into a whole business model that they can be like, oh, look what my mum does.
Yeah.
Isn't she cool? Especially being like a saxophone. That's much cooler than anything that I do.
It's so funny because a few months ago I was doing a wedding and this sort of young 20-year-old came up to me and she was like, oh my God, you're so cool. And I'm like, I'm really not. In my other life, I'm just mummy, mum bun in the hair, doing the school run, looking a bit of a mess. But it is great. It's that great feeling that you get to step into your other role, my other life, and I apparently appear cool to 20 odd year olds, which is great. That's a great ego boost.
And do you get all glammed up for them as well?
I make an effort. Like, I'm really rubbish day to day that I won't put any makeup on and I'm in my sweats and my comfies. But yeah, I'm 100% wearing sequins if it's an evening, making myself look presentable because you've got to make an effort to shine on their wedding day. So yeah, always sequins for the evening. Daytime, just, looking like I'm attending a wedding because for the best part of it I am.
I live in my comfies the majority of the time and sometimes just the effort of having to get changed is like, oh, but then once you've stepped into that and you've done it, you're like, okay, I feel better now. I've had a shower. I've sorted my hair out. I'm into this next zone now.
Definitely, if it's a Saturday and I'm only working in the evening, then I can just be in my comfies all day and hang around the house. And then as soon as I sit down in front of my dressing table, and you kind of, it's almost like putting on your war paint. And, you're like, okay, right, I'm stepping into that other idea of me now. And then you go there and you got your sequins on and you look in the part, and then so you are cool.
Well, thank you, Lucy, so much for taking the time to speak to me today. Please, can you let our listeners know how they can get hold of you?
I am on Instagram at Lucy Harvey, which is LucyHarvey Sachs.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've just listened to I'm Fine But. If you're unsure about business or what really matters to you right now, why not take our free core values course? It's linked in the show notes and it's a brilliant place to begin. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and you can follow us online at all your favourite social media platforms at Baby Beats UK. Until next time, I'm Rose and I'm fine. But honestly, we're all just figuring it out.